For American college students, summer traditionally is a fun time, a let-your-hair-down time when quizzes and books and campus politics are cast aside. A time when young people seize their last chances to recapture that special summer madness that touches only barefoot children and carefree college students. In the summer of 1964, one group of students did something different. They left the well-worn paths to Nags Head and Myrtle Beach to answer a call for volunteers in a campaign against poverty. Fresh and eager and anxious to serve, these students from 40 college campuses all over North Carolina reported for duty knowing only that they faced a summer of hard work somewhere in the state, helping people to help themselves. Of the thousands of North Carolinians of all ages who would join the campaign in the years ahead, these were the first 100. If ever a state were ripe for imaginative solutions to poverty problems, North Carolina was in the summer of 1964. 405,000 of the state's families were living on substandard incomes, living in conditions that pinch children's stomachs, stifle ambition, and drag a family's life pattern down to the dull level of simple day-to-day survival. Facing up to these problems, Governor Terry Sanford formed a bold plan for seeking solutions to these problems. In a statement that summed up North Carolina's new awakening to the problems of poverty, Governor Sanford said, "It is not enough to have here the most powerful nation in the world and then admit that we're powerless to find ways to give our young people training and job opportunities. In North Carolina, we want to go into a few communities and say to the leaders of schools, government, welfare, health, and charity, look, let's see if together, in a few neighborhoods near here, we can't break the cycle of poverty and give these children a better chance." In late 1963, the governor and other North Carolina leaders concerned with the poverty around them formed an organization called the North Carolina Fund. Supported by grants from the Ford Foundation of New York and the Z. Smith Reynolds and Mary Reynolds Babcock Foundations of Winston-Salem, the fund selected 7 communities for a beginning. One of the fund's first experiments called for recruiting and training of college students for a summer work program. 700 applied. 100 were selected as North Carolina volunteers. The volunteers first reported for duty at the campus of Duke University. For 3 days, 12 hours a day, they shared an orientation diet of lectures and discussions in a learning cycle that exposed them to the processes of community organization against poverty. Guest lecturers from state agencies, universities, and from the North Carolina Fund's own staff explained how public health, welfare, education, recreation, and other resources can coordinate with local government in community action programs to offer better opportunities to North Carolina's left-out families. They learned about the causes and symptoms of poverty and had their sights set by leaders such as the Fund's Director of Volunteers, Jack P. Mansfield.
Now, lack of cultural opportunity covers a wide field. This can be an absence of good library services in a remote, rural mountain area, or the lack of recreation facilities and recreation leadership in an urban community. We know the symptoms of poverty. The question is, what can be done to overcome them? This summer, you have been invited by the leaders of 6 North Carolina communities to come in and work with the local agencies at whatever tasks they assign you, to find out and to demonstrate what college students can do to strike at the causes of poverty. You may work with the welfare department as a casework assistant, or you may help with...
The volunteers learned that they were participants in a demonstration program financed jointly by the North Carolina Fund and the Cooperative Research Branch of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. Early in the orientation period, the students were divided into teams of 10. In team discussions, they began to know and understand their new partners in service for the long summer ahead. In crowded buses and in automobiles pulling trailers full of luggage, they headed for their assignments. Volunteers were assigned to 6 of the North Carolina Funds projects. Many were going to places they had never before visited. All 100 of them were headed for a type of job they had never before tackled. Durham, Craven, and Mecklenburg counties each had 1 team with 2 in Forsyth. 2 teams worked in Laurinburg on a 3-county project and 2 on a 4-county project in the mountains. In every case, the volunteers came at the request of local citizens already active in community development programs. On arrival, they moved into college dormitories, private school quarters available for the summer, and in one case, volunteers lived in a summer home donated by a local citizen. Many teams were welcomed by local people with a cookout or a swimming party. Then the work began, attacking the causes of poverty, especially by working with the children. The words you will hear are the volunteers' own expression of their reactions to the people and the problems of poverty.
What impressed me most was that these children were so eager for friendship and for things to do. They just wanted more things done. And they would come over on the days that we didn't have arts and crafts, when we had other things to do, and we'd have to turn them away and say, "I'm sorry, it's not today." And they'd come and sit and say, "Well, do you have any sewing you want me to do today?" And it really made me sad because there was nothing for them to do. We couldn't do everything. When the children were painting or making things, they'd feel free to talk to us. And I think that was more important, or just as important as making the puppets, to know that they had a place to come twice a week where somebody cared about what they were doing and what they were saying. And maybe if we show the children that wonderful things can happen with an old newspaper and a Coke bottle. Maybe if they don't have $1 million, there's a lot they can do with what they do have. Poverty is boredom. And if we can show the children that they can be rich even though they don't have a lot of money, we will have accomplished something.
In my work in Newbern with the unfortunate children through the Recreation Department, I've been able to see how people with potential can be developed, and hopefully my memory will hold the particular children in mind, and thinking that maybe perhaps the work that we have done here will have given them some kind of boost so that their future will be a little brighter.
Disadvantaged children suffer a poverty of experience, as well as a poverty of food and clothing. Volunteers took their youngsters to plays, swimming pools, and to movies, visits to the zoo, and on walks through nearby parks and gardens.
The children lack love and understanding, someone to confide in. Oh, I just think that is the most rewarding part just about of recreation, is they have someone to talk to. There's a definite need of the kind of work that I did there this summer. They bought me candy, candy and bubble gum. You tell them you didn't want it, but they wanted to give it to you. I mean, that was their expression of what they thought of you.
I think I remember the children more than anything else, because the children represent the problem. When you see these children within situations that they have no control over, you realize that they have no choice, and you can see what a wonderful difference it makes in them just to have some interest shown.
Most volunteers found their assignments flexible. They were encouraged to experiment and innovate, starting new programs if necessary. Out of his own experience as a college athlete, one volunteer started a health and recreation club for young teenagers. At a recreation facility donated by a manufacturing firm, he started a program that soon attracted dozens of youngsters, eager for wholesome activities to fill their idle summer days. All over the state, the North Carolina Volunteers gave the children leadership and guidance, factors too often missing in the homes of the poor.
I plan to be a Lutheran minister, and I've never lacked for anything as far as I know. I think I've been pretty lucky in this respect, and I want to try to help people who haven't been as fortunate as I have to try and help themselves.
A volunteer fashioned a special numbers board for teaching remedial math to children who were underachieving in 7th and 8th grades. The classroom often was the porch of a home just off a dusty street. Many of the female volunteers were education majors, ideal workers in a program for tutoring tough high school mathematics to slow achievers.
He really learned. He surprised me. And he's still doing fine. And he really enjoyed it so well until the day of school closed. He came home, and of course I could see some little expression on his face. And after a while, he just broke right down. I thought maybe some of the children had done something to him. Of course, he kept on a sniffling and a sniffling. And I said, yeah, I got right off. I said, what's the matter, baby? He said, Mama, I hate to see school closing. I said, I just love my teachers. Now, that is the truth.
Usually what we do is we'd have a story and then connect it with some sort of craft, and then the film strip with some sort of craft, and then if we took up marching or band activities, work it into a craft. They loved the film strips. To them, that was a treat. Oh boy, we're having a movie today. Children, well, they had the street to play in, and they had the school about 3 blocks from the library, and it had a little dirt patch behind it, and they could play there. No real recreation area. Nothing like swings or sliding boards. Now, I don't know if it was because these little children didn't have things to play with, that they weren't as coordinated as children, as the book said children at the 1st grade level should be. In basic things like skipping and jumping, there's certain things they should be able to do, and they just couldn't do them. And by the end of the summer, some of them could, but still some of the others couldn't. One little girl never did learn how to skip. The last day I was there was the most impressive to me. All these little kids stood up and sang me a song, which my teenage helper from the area taught them. But after they had sung it, they all came up and just hugged me, and I felt overwhelmed all of a sudden. These little kids, they started crying, and then I started. I didn't cry, but boy, I was holding back. I hated to leave them, but I think they hated to leave a little bit, too.
The thing that will stand out in my mind most is the whole class of mentally retardeds which I have. It makes me realize even more how much I want to continue in this field and how much enjoyment I receive just from the minute accomplishments that they make. I'm very interested in the problem of poverty and what can be done about it. It seems as if we in the United States have put so much emphasis on a kind of one-sided acceleration wherein, as the old saying goes, the richer get richer and the poor get poorer. So I'm very interested in what happens to these people in as much as I believe in the worth of every individual.
Ironically, poor people get less for $1 than their middle-class counterparts. With this in mind, one volunteer planned a class to teach mothers how to shop for groceries and preserve food. They learned cooking methods that leave the flavor and the vitamins in. Sewing, how to make new clothes and repair old ones.
So many people have chosen to ignore the fact that poverty does exist. In our middle-class society, everything is geared to it. And it's so much more comfortable to not to think about these people who have less than you. If you don't have to come in contact with them in a personal way, you can just ignore the fact that they exist. But you can't deny the fact when you take a look at a total community, that there are segments in every community that need help.
A lot of these people have been in poverty for so long, just sort of grown accustomed to the drawbacks of poverty. But they still want to change. Certainly these people don't enjoy their situation.
No, these people know that they're deprived, and they know that there's a difference, and that there is another way to live. And when we come in contact with them, and we see that they can be helped, and acquaint the whole society to the fact that they exist, then I think there's a way out.
Well, in the mountain counties, the people are in many areas isolated. They don't have the means or the time to go into town to the library. They have a fairly good library system, but the people simply can't get into it. So the mountain counties have 4 mobile libraries in the 4-county area. And during the summer, this system's very important because the children are out of school, and most of them have no books in their homes. The only way they can get books for an entire 3-month period then is through the services of the mobile library. Before the volunteers came into the area, because of lack of staff, lack of time and money available, the bookmobile could go out only about every 2 months to some of these places. Then after the volunteers went into the area, they were able to go to most places about every 3 weeks. The children were able to read more books during the summer, and we tried to open up new routes, especially routes where we knew there were children at home during the summer months who would benefit most from the bookmobile services. We tried especially hard to hit areas of cultural and economic deprivation.
I would say that adult education is perhaps the one area in which we differ from some of the other project areas. We simply contacted a high school principal in which we had a preschool readiness program, and he contacted his president of his PTA, and she went out into the community and simply asked the people who would be interested. And I think at the end of the summer there were 45 people who were enrolled. And these were all adults, and they ranged from complete illiteracy up to people who wanted to complete the high school education, so that they might prepare themselves for a more challenging position, or certainly a safer financial position.
After talking to a lot of the women and asking them why they were involved in this program, they would tell me time and time again that they wanted to try to get out of the situation that they were in. They were very enthusiastic about it, and this adult education program meant a tremendous amount to them. because it showed them a way they could get out of what they were in.
I'm 57. At the time that I heard about the program, if someone that passed by and said, you know, they're having free school. I said, yeah. She said, yeah. I said, well, I sure need to go. I need more education because I don't have it. And I said, I need it. And I said, if it's free, I'm going to try to get it.
I was with an environmental sanitation survey working with the public health department in my area, and my job was to go out and contact people in the homes and to survey and to inspect the sanitation conditions around the home, and when I found bad conditions, to speak with the people about them, tell them what is wrong, why, and what can be done to alleviate the conditions. So the main purpose of my work was educational also, to bring education in basic sanitation into individual homes. I found very poor sanitation conditions in the homes that I worked with, and the people who live in these conditions gradually grow accustomed to them, and they just pretty soon ignore the flies, the garbage, and the filth, and they're no longer concerned about this. They become accustomed to it, and so then the children of the family adopt the same attitude, and so it goes on in a cycle of bad sanitation. And I think that to overcome poor sanitation in the home will take education on the level of the individual homes. And this was the purpose of this survey that I made, to bring the education into the homes. Not only is the ignorance of basic sanitation, but an apathy to the problem. A community interest must be stimulated to overcome the apathy of the people.
16 of the volunteer girls will never forget their 3 weeks as construction workers. 2 volunteer teams, 16 girls and 4 boys, moved into a rural slum area, cleared a piece of ground, brought in materials and the basic tools, sank a shallow well, and built a 5-room house for a family that had no decent place to live.
In a community that had lost most of its self-respect. And we thought if we, a group of volunteers, amateurs, 16 girls and 4 boys, were to go into this community and show these people what you could really do with just a minimum amount of money and a lot of desire, that we could perhaps create an interest in them and just simply show them what could be done if they really wanted to do it.
We started at 8 o'clock in the morning and finished at 5 in the afternoon, and we had 3 weeks to complete the house. And therefore, we just worked steadily day by day. We built this home to get the family out of this home that was owned by two uncles of the children. The father and mother and the little baby boy slept in the front bedroom, and in the back bedroom slept the two uncles and the two little girls. And this was not the ideal living conditions for these children. And of course, the welfare department is very concerned with the welfare of the children. And this is why the home was built, not just to get the parents out of such a home, but primarily the children. Their concern was for them.
The night before we were to begin, a social worker came over and spoke to us about the father and said that we probably never would see him. He was just unable to work and carry on a job. And this is really what was amazing. The very first day this man comes up and introduces himself, well, I was so overcome. Everyone was, because this was the man that we were supposed to never see, you know, all summer long. He worked from the day we got there to the day we left. And what was left, he did.
We've heard from the family twice. One of the girls received a letter, and then I received a letter from the little boy, which showed me that we had begun something in this community that had no community spirit at all when we came. And I think a spark was begun.
They're just people without hope in many respects. And if we had lived, middle-class people had lived under this no-hope attitude for so long, we would become listless too and feel like, well, what's the use, and not do anything. Now others, especially the younger people, aren't like that. They see a vision, they're very idealistic, they think they can get out of it. Too often we isolate them, say, those people cross the tracks, we don't associate with them. And therefore, because of this lack of communication, there's not any understanding.
Too often, we think that the people of poverty are a breed all their own. Well, in a sense they are, but they've got a lot to give to the world if they're just given the chance to give it.
Who benefited most? The volunteers or the people they served?